This president is laughing it up with dictators and palling around with some of the worst abusers of human rights while deporting legal residents and talking about deporting citizens as well. Hey, Democrats, get off your asses and do your goddamn job. Hi, everyone. Thanks for watching. Most of the content on my channel is supported by generous patrons, but made available for free to the entire world. If you support that, please consider adding your support at patreon.com/atheistdebates. This clip, however, is from one of the many programs that I do on YouTube on The Line. And if you liked it, feel free to visit, like, subscribe, and watch The Line Network live. Thank you. It's Wednesday, April 16th, 2025. Welcome to the Hang Up. I'm Matt Dillahunty. 30 days ago, the Trump administration nabbed and deported Kilmar Abrego Garcia and shipped him, along with some other accused MS-13 gang members, to El Salvador to stay in a terrorist isolated prison with incredibly poor prison conditions and incredible risk to this individual. After legal filings moved up the chain, the Supreme Court a few days ago unanimously ordered the Trump administration to facilitate bringing him back. That's an important word, facilitate. There's another important word there that the administration's not as focused on, which is essentially the order itself. That this was the ruling of the Supreme Court, one of the three branches of government involved in checks and balances. That order has been ignored. A Maryland judge has been dealing with the lawyers on behalf of Abrego Garcia and said, essentially, just for clarity on what I'm thinking, he has already won his injunctive relief, and it has been affirmed by the Fourth Circuit Court and the Supreme Court. I want to know what the government is doing to facilitate his return. And throughout these various hearings, the Trump lawyers have said that facilitate isn't really well defined. I don't even know what that means. How can we facilitate it? And you know what? We can't force El Salvador to return him if they don't want to. And hey, we even talked about this in the Oval Office. The president of El Salvador was here speaking with Trump. A reporter asked, and the president of El Salvador just laughed and dismissed it. You know, that's absurd. I'm not gonna smuggle a terrorist into the United States. And of course, the Trump administration, because they're big guys who threaten people just right up until they don't want to, because they have something to gain, just kind of went, if El Salvador doesn't want to return him, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, we're done here, I guess. The judge needs more evidence. And so they have until 5 p.m. Monday to explain where he is, what they've done to get him back, and what they will do. Now, that wasn't good enough for everybody, and it shouldn't have been good enough for anybody, but Maryland Democrat Senator Chris Van Hollen flew down to El Salvador. I want to make a note that in a minute, I'm going to talk about a press conference that Caroline Leavitt did just an hour or two ago, where when she mentioned Senator Van Hollen going to El Salvador, she said, and he possibly did it on the government's dime. Good. Why should he have to pay out of his own pocket as a senator for people who are legally residing in Maryland to protect their civil rights when you fucking won't? Good. I hope he spent taxpayer dollars doing this. But Senator Van Hollen flew down there and met with the vice president of El Salvador, who said it wouldn't be possible to see Kilmar Abrego Garcia because they hadn't given sufficient advance notice. And so Van Hollen asked about other means of checking in on him, like maybe if I come back next week, or could we talk to him by phone, or could we allow his wife to speak to him? And the vice president of El Salvador, who's either a liar or a weak-ass little yes boy, said he couldn't assure any of those things and told him that he needed to go through the U.S. Embassy. When the vice president of El Salvador was asked, why is he imprisoned if he's been convicted of no crimes in El Salvador and convicted of no crimes in the United States, the answer was that he is there because the Trump administration is paying El Salvador to keep him there. That's from Senator Van Hollen via the vice president of El Salvador, and it's in line with everything everybody said, and we all know it. So the Trump administration's going, hey, we made an administrative mistake. We acknowledge it was an administrative mistake, but, it's too late. If El Salvador wants to get him back, there's nothing we can do about that either way. But we can't do anything to facilitate this, and facilitate's not even really well explained. We don't know what it means to facilitate. Just an hour or so before I was getting ready for the show, Trump's press secretary, who we should all now refer to as Trump's Minister of Propaganda, Caroline Leavitt, had a press conference that was full of fallacies and lies, where she really wanted to attack Democrats. So she framed Abrego Garcia as an illegal alien MS-13 gang member and terrorist. Now, let's be really clear here. If, in fact, he is an illegal alien MS-13 gang member and terrorist, I'm all in favor of you demonstrating that through due process, convicting him, and sending him to prison. I'd rather you didn't send him to, El Salvador for prison, but you know what? That's where he's a citizen. If that's where the crimes are committed, fine, we can fix El Salvador's prisons some other day, or maybe never. But at least the issue here is that this individual, like everyone, is deserving of due process. She framed him as an illegal, which isn't true. He did come to the United States illegally, but in 2019, he was granted a withholding of removal status by a judge, which means he was here legally. He's not a citizen, but he resides in Maryland legally, and he has a wife and kids. Trump's Minister of Propaganda suggested that Democrats just keep framing him as a Maryland father, when he's not a Maryland father and never will be a Maryland father. And if he ever comes back, we will deport him again. This is blatant defiance. The Supreme Court says, get him back. The Fourth Circuit said, get him back. The Maryland judge is saying, what are you doing to get him back? The Trump administration goes from, we can't really get him back unless El Salvador wants to. And then El Salvador says, no, we don't want to. We want to keep him. And now their Minister of Propaganda, you vicious beast, is saying, oh, well, even if he does come back, we'll deport his ass again. Because it's more important for them to be clear in violation of the orders of the highest court of the land than it is for them to actually follow the law. She also presented a copy of a protective order that his wife had filed in order to portray him as a wife beater. And maybe he is. But you know what? Somebody here legally with a protective status, even if they are a spousal abuser, doesn't mean you get to deport them. And it doesn't mean you get to do any of this without due process. She framed this as the Democrats just want to try to save this violent, woman-beating, MS-13 gang rapist terrorist dude. Why aren't they thanking us for having fewer illegal border crossings or all the wonderful things we've done or trying to make the United States safe for our citizens? Yes, Minister of Propaganda, keep shoveling out the shit because the masses are eating it up like it's prime rib. She said he's not a dad and not a Maryland dad and never will be. She also lied and portrayed the Supreme Court ruling as a unanimous decision that Trump nor the Secretary of State can be forced to return him, which is the most dishonest framing of what the ruling actually was. The ruling acknowledged that while we can't say you have to do this, we can order you to facilitate it, to use the trappings of your office and the power of your office to make sure that this person whose rights were violated, who has been granted this injunction, is returned to the United States. Now, it may look like I'm here alongside the bleeding heart, tree-hugging, hippy-dippy, dipshit liberal Democrats defending a wife-beating MS-13 gang member terrorist just because we I don't know, I guess we have Trump derangement syndrome or whatever. But what I'm really defending is the Constitution of the United States and due process. The Constitution that I took an oath to protect and defend when I was in the military, the same Constitution that Trump took an oath to protect and defend, the same Constitution that the Supreme Court decided to get fuzzy with, but then defend unanimously when it comes to due process. If this guy is guilty, lock him up, but you don't get to do that until you take and put in the actual efforts. These guys want the end result with no fucking work. That's what happens when you put dipshit billionaires in charge of something, when you put people who've never had to do anything, who just keep getting stuff handed to them, and everybody around them is sucking up. Look at this. Go look at the staff meetings. Every single person in his cabinet is like, Mr. Trump, you are the best ever. Yes, sir. I love the way you stood up to the communists and the Chinese and everything. And your tariffs are so good, it doesn't matter what the economy is doing. It's all, please, please, please don't put me on your enemies list. While wearing gold pins of his face. This president is laughing it up with dictators and palling around with some of the worst abusers of human rights while deporting legal residents and talking about deporting citizens as well. If he wanted to get that guy back and follow what the Supreme Court said, it happened like that. The president of El Salvador is in the office. He's like, hey, we screwed up. We need that guy back. The president of El Salvador, I guarantee you, would be like, yes, sir, Mr. President, we'll do it right away. Because El Salvador can't fuck with us. If Trump gave any shit at all about following the law, it would have already been over. Welcome to an undeniably fascist oligarchy. A unanimous Supreme Court decision is being ignored and misrepresented by Trump's Secretary or Minister of Propaganda, Carolyn Leavitt, because the same court granted him supreme status above the law. Revolution must happen, and it needs to begin now. You have to act. You have to oppose. This is not a call for violence. It's a call to end complacency. It is a call to end your frustration. It is a call to end the anxiety that is keeping you crippled because everything has gone wrong and they're breaking so many laws and they're ruining so many things all at once that you don't even know what to fucking look at. So we're all flailing around. We live in a cult. They're wearing golden pens of their dear leader and having staff meetings and sucking up to him. They're lying and calling everybody else liars. They are misrepresenting all of the facts about everything because they don't care about anything but their power and their pocketbooks. They are actively ignoring the courts. They are working with the worst violators of human rights. They are going after the lawyers who tried to follow the law and prosecute them for their past crimes. They are going after universities. Trump has now called to remove any nonprofit status for Harvard because Harvard's standing up against his DEI restrictions and everything else. They're suing Maine because Maine isn't going to go along with the law that bars kids who are trans from participating in sports with the gender that they identify with. If you are an enemy of the state's coming after you. And the Supreme Court, fuck you, put him above the law. And so he gets to do that. What are you going to do, Supreme Court? Whine? You're going to make another ruling that he's going to ignore? You're going to make yet another ruling that he's going to ignore? Hey, Democrats, get off your fucking asses and do your goddamn job. Stop letting the independents out there do the heavy lifting and run interference for you. Do your fucking job. And for all of you listening, run. Run for office if you're able to. And run as whatever category you want to stand up in opposition to the status quo. And if you are not safe and not able to run for office, run for your life. Start making preparations for shit to get much, much, much worse. If you are in any marginalized group in the United States, it should be very clear. The United States is no longer united, and it is definitely not safe. Your rights are not guaranteed here. Not even the basic rights of due process, not even the basic rights of, hey, we can't just collect you and disappear you. Your civil liberties are not protected. This betrayal of the foundations of the law is also a betrayal of the foundations of justice. It is antithetical to humanism. It is antithetical to decency. It is antithetical to everything that could have made and kept the United States great for real and not just great on your fucking red hat. This has to stop. It is time. It is past time for everyone to get the fuck involved and to stand up for what is right and what is just. And if this individual that has sparked this ire from everyone on both sides is guilty, let him rot in a prison, but don't throw out due process because you're next, and you're next, and you're next. I'm next. What happens when the state shuts down my ability to talk, when it shuts down David Pakman's ability to talk, when it shuts down Brian Tyler Cohen's ability to talk, when it shuts down anybody who stands in opposition. I don't control YouTube. YouTube can shut me down right in the middle of this fucking show. There is nothing stopping anyone from ending free speech in its truest sense. There's nothing stopping anyone from shutting down any opposition to the state. The United States of America is in violation of its own constitution, its own treaties, its own policies, international treaties, international policies. We are fucked. And if you haven't been paying attention, or you haven't been thinking, oh, it's never going to get that bad, it's never going to get that bad, how much longer are you going to wait before you're like, wow, I guess it was wrong. I guess it is going to get that bad. What can we do? Because if you've already jumped out of the plane and you didn't pack a chute, there's really nothing left for you to do. And as the United States goes careening towards global conflict, the possibility of war, massive war, looms over all of us. I don't understand this Trump cult. I don't understand the sycophants. I watched Marco Rubio, who is at least qualified for his job, just be an absolute asshole-licking douche nozzle sitting right next to Trump. Oh, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. Oh, my God. How can anybody watch this shit and not see? I don't know what's going to happen next, but this shit has to end, or civilization will. And my apologies for a number of things. I get it. This isn't the opening a lot of people would have expected. And we've got callers already lined up. Joining me tonight, Mr. Deity. Brian, please come in. How are you through all of this?
I'm good. I can't give a bigger amen to what you said, especially that fuck you to the Supreme Court. But I do want to reassure you, Bill Maher had dinner with the president, and apparently he's a very charming guy. He's a very charming guy, so we're all okay. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
That's good.
This is terrifying because, yeah, I have friends who are naturalized citizens. One in particular who's scared to death right now. She's been here more than she hasn't. She grew up in India and she's here now. And this is the first time in my life where I can't say to her, "Don't worry about it. We have a system here. You're not just going to be taken away and kicked out of the country because we have this thing process and all of this stuff." And I've been doing this series over the last couple months, pushing back against these theists who are trying to tell us that Christianity is responsible for all these Enlightenment values. So we've been looking at those one by one: anti-authoritarianism, pluralism, equality, all of those things. And the one that was coming up this month is due process, something Christianity never had. Basically, the whole world never had due process, much due process, until the American Revolution and the Enlightenment, where those kinds of things started to be talked about. So I hate to. This is going to fit perfectly in with my series, but we have to remember that these values that the Trump administration is trying to get rid of, that came from our Constitution, this is the way the world used to work prior to America and the rights revolution, and all throughout Christian history from the 4th century on. This is the way it was. You could be picked up there's a guy, I can't remember his name. He said something bad about the Vulgate. He was a translator, and he translated the Song of Solomon into a I wish I could remember his name. He translated it into a language other than Latin, and they threw him in prison for 5 years, almost killed him. Just picked him up, took him away, tortured him, all kinds of terrible stuff for doing things like, going against the Pope, who said the Vulgate has to be the only version that we use. And, I mean, this kind of stuff, your history, it's right out of the Holy Roman Empire and beyond. It goes all the way back. So it's just crazy to see this. And we have our evangelical, as I call them, evangelical friends to thank for all of this.
By the way, you probably missed it while you were referencing Bill Maher. Fuck that guy, and fuck that guy for many years in the past as well.
Yes.
How wild people. I remember when, probably maybe 8-9 years ago when I was touring around with Sam and Dawkins and some others, and people were like, "Oh, you should go on Bill Maher," and I was like, "Why?" I'm like, first of all, I don't just invite myself on shows. They have to want me on there and invite me. I'm not just, hey, Bill, why don't you have me on a show? Because I don't know him. But he did, religulous or religulous, whichever one, however you pronounce it. And all the atheists were like, ooh, and then they gave him the Richard Dawkins Award, woo, despite the fact that he's shit all over atheists as well, and any number of stuff, not remotely skeptical, is a science fucking denier on a number of things, right down to health issues. Oh, I never get sick because I eat right, and it's just what you put in your gut. I mean, this is not a skeptic. This is not a humanist. This is a comedian that pokes fun and tries to call out some injustice, but draws a line at the things that are actually going to impact him.
Right.
Yeah. This is a weird day because I didn't have that opening planned when I started the day. It was really watching Caroline Leavitt that absolutely sealed the deal for her to come out and go straw man, irrelevant thing, lie, misrepresentation. And then why do you hate the troops? Why do the Democrats not want to protect the United States citizens? This is the sad thing is you can't fight fire with fire. If the Democrats retake power, which, fuck the Democrats too, by the way, for sitting by, not doing their damn jobs. But if they regain power, the whole world will breathe this sigh of relief and, things are returning to normal. And then the Democrats will go through due process. And you know what? None of these people will ever pay because the current system, even through due process, is unlikely to work. Trump's convicted of 34 felonies. And what's he doing? He's going after the people who prosecuted him. These are enemies of dear leader.
Right.
So we have a bunch of callers, and most of them are theists, and we always prioritize theists here. So I'm going to take calls in just a second. I want to kind of take a little breath just to shift focus because I know we're going to end up talking about gods and, trans rights and whatever else people are calling in about. And I don't know how much we're actually going to spend on the subject that I talked about at the top. So just as we're getting ready to make this shift into theism, I want to remind people, yes, it's a call-in show. We are always going to prioritize theists, just like we do on the other shows here on the line. I will be happy if people can say, here's what I believe, why I believe it, why I think you should believe it. I've been saying that like a mantra for I don't know how many years now. There is a delay on the phones. There's also a delay between myself in the studio, myself and Brian in the studio. There's delays all over the place. So I'm going to make judicious use of mute. And I will, in fact, interrupt when we need clarity on things. If you just, if you're not ducking and dodging or saying things that are confusing, then you're going to get to talk. I genuinely always want to have good conversations. Unfortunately, on this show, it doesn't always go that way. So let's see